morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aakanksha Tated, and I am an assistant archivist based in Mumbai. I'll be discussing how museums address difficult histories, focusing on two institutions, the Partition Museum and the Conflictorium. I'll explore their approaches in making painful histories accessible and impactful, shedding light on how museums preserve collective memories and foster dialogue. I thank ICOM MPR and ICOM Georgia for this opportunity to present at the conference today. This presentation will explore two museums, like I said, the Partition Museum and apologies. Yeah, like I said, the Partition Museum and the Conflictorium. I will focus on how they address difficult histories using exhibits and engagement strategies. Through these examples, we'll see how museums can make complex and painful topics more understandable and relatable for their audiences. Engaging with painful past is crucial for remembrance, dialogue, and healing. This quote, those who cannot remember their past are condemned to relive it, I feel mentions how museums can also serve as spaces for confronting difficult histories and making them accessible and meaningful to their audiences. By addressing past traumas, museums not only preserve history but also encourage critical reflection, fostering understanding and societal progress. This process helps ensure the lessons are learned and that history is used to guide us towards a more just future. The partition of India in 1947 is a deeply traumatic event that has shaped the modern socio-political landscape. Despite its significance, this history has often been sidelined in mainstream narratives. It is in 2022 that 75 years of Indian independence, the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, was celebrated. And while for a lot of years, the independence, the partition, was not addressed in museum spaces, in cultural institutions, because it was too painful to represent. However, today, museums like the Partition Museum are providing critical spaces to engage with the pain of the partition and its lasting impacts. By addressing difficult heritage such as this, museums help ensure that these stories are preserved and understood by future generations. This effort also aligns with the need for reflection on memory and heritage in order to learn from past injustices, trauma, and survival. So, this research focuses on how museums use their collections and programs to engage with difficult histories. What is the role that they're taking in addressing difficult pasts in our society? What strategies do they employ in helping visitors connect with and reflect on these traumatic pasts? In this presentation, we explored two case studies, one with a museum focusing on conflict, whereas the Partition Museum preserves the memory of India's division, the Indian subcontinent's division into India, Pakistan, and eventually Bangladesh as well. Both museums tackle sensitive histories through their exhibits and community engagement. Let's take a closer look at how they do so. The Conflictorium, which opened in 2013 in Ahmedabad, a World Heritage Site, and in 2022 in Raipur, Chhattisgarh, focuses on the very idea of conflict and reconciliation. It understands that conflict is a part of the society itself, and its exhibits, which are participatory in nature, encourage visitors to reflect on the moral implications of conflict. The museum's approach invites visitors to share their own personal experience and reflect on the collective conflict that exists within our society. And it does so through artistic representation. The Partition Museum, on the other hand, is located in the northern region of India, in Amritsar and New Delhi, two different cities which have been affected by the history of partition in several ways. It centers on this traumatic experience of the Great Divide, where millions were displaced uh, due to this sudden shift of geographical boundaries. The museum seeks to honor the displaced millions by preserving their personal stories, photographs, archival objects, artifacts, as well as oral histories. Through its exhibits, it encourages reconciliation, healing, and a deeper understanding of lasting impact through identity sharing and building. It envisions itself as a people's museum and uses storytelling approaches to present its ideas. So both of these museums represent and interpret difficult paths, using participatory approaches of engaging their audiences. They're recreating the very understanding of a conflict, of what it means to have lived in a divided nation. The Conflictorium's exhibits are designed to foster personal engagement with the themes of conflict and violence. For example, uh, the witness box, this particular engagement approach that you see here, invites visitors to share their personal experience of conflict and transforms the museum into a participatory space where the past is not just observed but is actively relived as well. Another exhibit that you see here is the Sorry Tree. It exists in both of the sites in Raipur and in Ahmedabad, and it asks visitors to write apologies for the past wrongdoings that are related to personal, political, socio-cultural histories, and it directly presents an opportunity to reconcile with their memories and reflect as a collective responsibility. All of the images that you see here are from the Ahmedabad and the Raipur sites and are their permanent exhibitions of display. The museum also engages on a monthly basis and more in artistic residencies and supports creative expressions of the understanding on conflicts in society. So, through such exhibits, the Conflictorium is trying to create a space where people can confront with the human costs of conflict in a very meaningful way. And these are some of the highlights of um, their engagement. So, beyond its exhibit, it fosters engagement through public programming, workshops, as well as storytelling events. These activities provide visitors opportunities to reflect on their own experiences, like I mentioned before, and engage in discussions about conflict. For example, the museum regularly hosts group discussions and workshops that explore the emotional and social consequences of violence, as well as uh, storytelling workshops where people can engage and mention their own stories. Here you have Instagram ideas where Instagram is used as a tool to disseminate personal story and build connection with its audiences. For example, here you see something from the time of the COVID lockdown where the museum engaged in an Instagram takeover with various artists and people of the community presenting the conflict in their very own identity. For example, here you understand disability through a personal identity, which is shared through various theoretical and creative approaches. There are several movie screenings and discussions that support individual artists and artist collectives that are also a part of their approach of engagement. Another interesting engagement that they have created is a conflict journal which is a very personal experience because each page is again a theoretical but also creative expression of understanding what does conflict mean to you in your personal life, in your daily life, and how does that affect your understanding of the society. So everything that the museum is doing is questioning what the idea of conflict is in the society and asking you to deal with this gray area of this understanding. And how is it that then you are a part of society where conflict is necessary as a society to grow? But how is it that you understand your point of view within this cultural amalgamation of conflicts? The next being the Partition Museum. The Partition Museum's exhibits are more personal in nature, for they represent a society's understanding of division, of migration, but also presents archival photographs of how the collective society experienced uh, this event as well. It includes written testimonies as well as oral histories within its narratives. So it includes archival material, artistic representation, as well as first-hand objects of people who have gone through the partition in 1947 and 1971 as well. One of the museum's key exhibits is the Gallery of Hope, which features stories of resilience, survival, highlighting the strength of individuals who endured displacement and loss. These personal stories are told through several objects like letters, clothing, and family heirlooms, which they carried in their journey from one independent nation to the other to avoid violence. And they serve as poignant reminders of the human cost of partition. The museum's exhibits aim to humanize the trauma of partition and emphasize the enduring human spirit in the face of adversity. Some of the highlights of this collection in terms of engagement are the opportunities that it represents for people to artistically represent partition and to continuously engage, because partition is something that happened in 1947. Uh, Today, it is a second generation or third generation memory. And how is that? How is it that it's passed on generations in food, in culture, in habits, and the idea of lost homeland resurrects again and again through these narratives. So, through educational programs, workshops, public talks, book launches, Instagram stories, polls, uh, blogs, and even poetry writing recitation initiatives, the museum continuously addresses the emotional and historical dimensions of partition. And through these initiatives, the museum encourages the visitor to engage in conversations about identity, migration, and healing. It also offers an online archive, enhancing these reach. Key projects that I can mention here, where collaboration is fostered with educational institutions with archival projects, are the Lost Homeland of Sindh, as well as their continuous collaboration with the 1947 Partition Archive, with Citizens Archive of Pakistan, Citizens Archive of India, is how their oral histories contribute to the continuous storytelling in the museum through its curation, but also through this particular program called the Child of Empire, which is a VR initiative, a VR project that gives you a kit and allows you to explore what this feeling of partition was through the narration between two individuals who have gone through the partition itself. It's a creative visualization, but it allows you a first-hand perspective into what went through during this mass exodus. So I believe that these museums thus create engagement spaces and play a vital role in confronting difficult histories and promoting heritage and healing. Through their exhibits and engagement strategies, they provide opportunities for reflection, empathy, and dialogue, thus preserving difficult pasts and empowering communities. In conclusion, I think both of these museums resonate with the motto of Conflictorium, that is Guftagu Jari Rahe, let the conversations continue. This message, I believe, underscores the importance of remembering the past, especially in societies where history is often erased, forgotten, or rewritten. These museums create spaces for reflection, engaging audiences with difficult, sensitive histories, allowing reconciliation, understanding, especially for those that may not have been through the violence, the partition, and these sensitive histories. With that, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to ICOM MPR, ICOM Georgia, the entire team for supporting this virtual presentation, for the team for hosting this insightful conference and providing a space for dialogue and learning. My appreciation to my university, the faculty and staff who supported this research first as a graduate thesis. And lastly, I'm grateful to the museums like Conflictorium and Partition Museum and other such cultural institutions, which are continuously engaging in invaluable work for preserving difficult histories and for our shared recollection of such stories for our future generations as well. Thank you for your time and engagement with this presentation. I look forward to any questions that you have. Please feel free to reach out. My email and my LinkedIn has been added to the presentation for your reference. I look forward to other presentations within the conference and congratulate everyone on a successful conference as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.